Okay, so in this video I'm going to have a look at factorizing quadratic trinomials. I'm going to have a look at using different methods for factorizing these quadratic trinomials. So as I had in the previous video, a quadratic trinomial is just something like this, where you've got an x squared, you'll have some multiple of x here, so in this case minus 4x, and then you'll have a number independent of x, so a number with no x here. So really we just want to factorize this. So the quickest way of doing them is really, if you just practice a lot of these, you'll almost see the answer. So you can kind of draw two brackets here, factorize the x squared to give you x times x. If we look at this number out here, we've got a 12, so we can have 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. And if we look at the number in the middle here, we need to find two factors of 12 here. We have three pairs of factors here of 12, but we need to find a pair that we can add or subtract to give us this 4 here, this minus 4. So we can see we can't get a 4 from a 1 and a 12, so that's not going to work. If we add them we get 13, if we subtract we get 11, so that's not going to work. 2 and a 6 will work. If we subtract 2 from 6 we will get 4. We can't get a 4 here. If we add 4 and 3 we get 7. If we subtract we'll get 1, so that's not going to work. So we look at this, we can do a plus 6 and we can do a minus 2. That'll give us our minus 4. Sorry, no, it's actually the other way, isn't it? It's actually a minus 6. We can do a minus 6x and we can do a plus 2x. That'll give us our minus 4x. So we can put a 6 here if you like, and then put the 2 here. We need to multiply the 6 by the 2 to give us a minus 12, so we need a plus and a minus, and we've seen that here. So we need our minus 6 here and the plus 2 here. So to check that, what I say we do, as I said in the previous video, we multiply this x by this x will give us this x squared here. Multiply the minus 6 by the plus 2, that'll give us our minus 12. And to get the one in the middle, then we do this kind of thing here, where we do these two and add our answers. So here we can see if we multiply these two together we get a minus 6x. If we multiply these two here together we get a plus 2x. If we add these two then we get minus 4x. So we can see we do have a minus 4x here in the middle. So this factorization here works. Now let's just look at another way of doing that. I'll just write it out again. We had 4x. No, we didn't. We had just x squared, I think it was. Yeah, x squared. Then we had minus 4x, and then we had a minus 12. Now another way of doing that is to use what's called the area model. So if we take a rectangle here like this, divide it into 4 parts. If we take the entire area here is equal to x squared minus 4x minus 12, so we're going to divide it up into 4 parts and get the area of each. If we take the area of this part here is x squared, and let's take this area, the area down here is minus 12. Now we've got an a and a b here then that we don't know what to put in here yet. So what we can do then is take our minus 12 here and look at the different ways of factorizing that. Well, we can have a 1 times 12. Now we can have a minus 1 and a plus 12, or a minus 12 and a plus 1. I'll actually just leave out the minus for the moment. We'll just take plus, we'll just take it as 12 for the moment. So we have 2 times 6 and we have 3 times 4. Now again we need to look at this minus 4 here and this minus 4x and see which pair will actually give us a minus 4. And if we look at these three here, again we can see we can get a minus 4 from our 2 and 6 here. So what would we need? We would actually need to get a minus 12. To get a minus 12 we would need a plus and a minus. So we would need a minus 2 times a plus 6, or we would need a plus 2 times a minus 6. But if we look at the one in the middle here, we actually need a minus 4x. So it's actually going to be, again, this one here that we're going to use, a minus 6x. And so we're going to need minus 6x and then a plus 2x. If we add these two together here, we will get minus 4x, which is the number in the middle. So what we do is we take our area model again here, divide it up into 4 parts again, and we know we're going to have x squared here. We put our minus 12 here. We put these two here. We're going to put these two in the other two squares. So I'm going to take a minus 6x and put it in here, and I'm going to pick the 2x and put it in here. What you're going to do now is find the highest common factor of each row and each column. So for example, if we take this column here, the highest common factor here, this column is going to be x. The highest common factor for this column here, the highest number that will go into minus 6x and minus 12, is actually minus 6. Now if we go horizontally, then we can see we've got an x squared and a minus 6x. So we'll put our x here, that's the highest common factor here. And if we work horizontally along here, we can see we've got a 2x and a minus 12. We're going to take the 2, we're going to take the plus 2 here. So if you look at what we've ended up with here along our horizontal and vertical here, we've actually ended up with our factors. We started with x squared minus 4x minus 12, and we found our factors are x minus 6, x minus 6, and here we've got an x plus 2. And that's it. This is our area model for working out our factors for this thing here. Let's just have a look at another example. Let's just move down a little bit, and we'll take x squared plus 5x, so we'll take x squared plus 5x minus 14. So again, if we take our area model here, we can see we're going to have factorize this is going to be x, well, our area of this part here is going to be x squared. Minus 14 then we'll put down here, that's the area of this part down here. So it's really this 5 here in the middle. We've got to work out what's going to go in here. Well, if we take our 14 and look at all our factors of 14, we've got 1 times 14, we've got 2 times 7, and that's it really. So we can see we can't get a 5 from these two, but we can get a 5 from these two. So how can we do that if we add them? Well, we need a plus 7x, and we need a minus 2x. That'll give us our plus 5x when we add them. So I'm going to need a plus 7x, so we'll put that here, plus 7x, and then a minus 2x we'll put down here, minus 2x. So again, if we factorize this column here first of all, or find our highest common factor, I should say, of this vertical column here, we've got an x squared here, we've got an x here, so highest common factor there would be x. If we look at this here, we've got a plus 7 and a minus 14, highest common factor here. We'll use the positive value here, which is 7. Now if we go along here and look at this row, the highest common factor of x squared and 7x, again, is just x. If we look along here, we got a minus 2x and a minus 14, so this time I'm going to go for the minus factor. Minus 2 is the highest common factor of minus 2x and minus 14. So we started with x squared plus 5x minus 14. So our factors here are just simply going to be along here, we've got an x and we've got a plus 7. Down along here, we've got an x minus 2. And again, you can see that will actually work. We've got an x times x is x squared, plus 7 times minus 2 is minus 14. And then if we do this kind of thing here again and add them, we've got a plus 7x minus 2x, which will give us plus 5x. So that's the area model way of doing these kind of questions. Now let's have a look at another way. So let's take another example. This time we're going to take a 5x squared, we're going to take minus 8x, and then we're going to take minus 4. Now here we have a coefficient, we have a number in front of the x squared. The coefficient of x squared here is 5. So what I'm going to do here is use this kind of model here. So I'm going to take this big long line here, another long line here. This is kind of called the big X method, if you like. We put an arrow here, we put an arrow here. And you just work down here vertically. So if we take the 5x squared, that can be divided up into 5x times x. So 5x times x will give me 5x squared. Now if I look along here, if I take that 4, I can take 4 times 1, Now it needs to be a minus 4, so I need to multiply the minus the 4 by 1 to give me a minus 4, so it'll have to be a plus times a minus or a minus times a plus. Well, let's put the plus here and the minus here. Now if we do this, we need to check it first anyway, so let's do the left hand side here first. 5x times x will give me 5x squared, plus 4 times minus 1 will give me the minus 4 here. But what about the number in the middle? So how do we do that? Well, you just follow the arrows here. You multiply this 5x by this minus 1. That'll give me minus 5x. If I go down this way, take this x here and multiply it by this 4 here, is plus 4, so that will give me plus 4x. If you add these now, you'll get a minus x. So you can see here the number in the middle is not a minus x. The number in the middle here is not minus x. So this here doesn't work. This is not a valid solution here. So we can see also, actually, if I put this plus down here and the minus up here, I'll still end up with an x rather than an 8x. I'll end up actually with a plus x. So this is not going to work. This 4 and 1 is not going to work. The other factors of 4 are 2 and 2. Oh, by the way, if I put this 4 down here, eventually I'll end up multiplying 5 by 4 to give me 20. And I'll have the 1 up here, which will mean I'll end up with multiplying x by 1, which is x. Again, I can't get an 8 from a 20x and a 1x, so that's not going to work. So really I'm going to have to look at the other factors of 4 to put in here. So let's do it again. We'll take our 5x squared minus 8x minus 4. We'll do our big x here again. Put in the arrows here. 5x squared, there's only one possibility here, 5x. So it's actually 5x times x. 5x times x will give me 5x squared. Now the other factors of 4 here are 2 times 2. Now I need to get a minus 4 here, so I need a plus times a minus, plus times minus, or it could be minus times plus. Again, when you've done a number of these, you'll see where these signs should go. Let's just check if this one works. Well, we have 5x times x will give me 5x squared, so working up this way works fine. Minus 2 times plus 2 will give me a minus 4, so that's fine. Now let's see if we can get the number in the middle by following the arrows. Well, 5x times minus 2 is minus 10x. Plus times minus is minus, 5 times 2 is 10. Working up this way, we've got a plus times a plus, which is a plus. X times 2 is plus 2x. So here we'll have minus 10x plus 2x, minus 10x plus 2x, which is minus 8x. We have a minus 8x in the middle, so this is correct. Now, if you'd have gotten the signs the wrong way around, if you had to put a minus here and a plus here, when you did this procedure here, you would have found that you would have gotten a plus 8x here. So you would have gotten the right number, but just the wrong sign. So that would have indicated that you just needed to switch the signs around. So what we find here is you just take 5x plus 2. So one factor, I'll do it over here. 5x plus 2 is one factor. And the other one then is just this x minus 2 here, x minus 2. So these are the factors of this here. Just to check that, 5x times x is 5x squared, plus 2 times minus 2 is minus 4. And if we do this kind of thing here, we get plus 2x. So we'll get plus 2x here, and we'll get, going from multiplying 5x by minus 2, we get minus 10x, so that will give me minus 8x. That works. Okay, I'll do one more of these, and we'll see how we go with that one. So I'm going to do, let's see, let's take 4x squared minus 63x minus 16. I might actually do this in two different ways. I might try the other way, which I did in a previous video, called the guide number method as well. So, but let's do this big X method first. So I'm going to take this big line here, another line up along here. So if we take 4x squared, now we have a couple of possibilities for 4x squared. We can say 2 times 2, or we can say 4 times 1. So I'm going to start with 4x times x, 4 times 1 in other words, to give me 4x squared. I could try 2x times 2x here, but we have to start somewhere, so let's start with 4x times x. Now 16 here, this can be, let's see, 16, if I take 16 here, it's 1 times 16, it could be 2 times 8, it could be 3, no, it could be 4 times 4. So again, I've got to start somewhere, so let's start with 16 times 1. 16 times 1 here. Now I need to multiply 16 by 1 to give me a minus, so it needs to be plus times minus. So let's put the plus here and the minus here. And let's see how this works. 4x times x is 4x squared. Plus times minus is minus. 16 times 1 is 16. So let's go for this now. We'll follow these arrows here. So 4x times minus 1 is minus 4x. X times plus 16 is plus 16x. So what I get here is plus 12x. I needed a minus 63, so I'm way out. So you can probably spot here that I need to get somewhere up around 63. So if I multiply 4 by 1 and x by 16, I'm going to get nowhere near 63. If the 16 was here, I'd end up multiplying 4 by 16, which is actually 64. So I'm actually quite close to 63. So I think I might just switch this around, put the 16 down here, and that'll get me fairly close to 63. So let's start it again here. So I'll write the quadratic trinomial down first. 4x squared minus 63, x minus 16. So we'll do our big X again here. Put in the arrows. So I'm going to stick with 4x times x on this side. And now I'm just going to switch around. I'm going to put a 1 here and a 16 here. So let's see how this works. Okay, now I needed a plus times a minus, so again let's put the plus here and the minus here. I think we might get a 63 here. I'm not too sure about the signs yet, but let's have a look. 4x times x will give me 4x squared. Plus times minus will give me minus, and 1 times 16 will give me the 16. So this one is okay. The one in the middle then, let's follow the arrows again. 4 times minus 16 is minus 64x. X times plus 1 is plus 1x. So this time I get, when I add these two, I get minus 63x, and that's exactly what I need. So these are my factors. So my final answer then is 4x plus 1, 4x plus 1 times here x minus 16, x minus 16. Okay, let's look at another way of doing that. I know I've done this in a previous video, but let's just have a look at it again. This is called the guide number method, and we're going to start with 4x squared minus 63 x minus 16. So the guide number method is a good method to use when you have a number here that you might have to factorize a few different ways, and a number here that you might have to factorize a few different ways. But what you need to do here is take the coefficient of the x squared and the number independent of x, these two numbers here in other words, multiply them. In this particular case we will get a minus 64. Now you've got to look at the factors of 64. So you've multiplied 4 by 16 and got 64. You've got to look at the factors of 64 that when added or subtracted could give you this 63. So the first one you can look at really is 1 times 64. 1 times 64 is 64, and there are others of course. There's 2 times 32, there's 4 times let's see, what's that, 1, 24, 4, 6, so 16, and so on. There might be other ones here. But looking at these, I can see already I have one here. I have 1 and 64. If I subtract 1 from 64, I will get a 63 here. So I'm going to try this one first. If this doesn't work, I can always just work my way down here, see if there are any other ones. But what you need to do when it comes to the guide number method is rewrite this quadratic trinomial into what's called a group of 4. So I'm going to take this 63, I'm going to split it up. So I'm going to leave the 4x squared as it is. I'm going to take minus 63 and I'm going to write it in terms of these two numbers here. So I'm going to take minus 64x plus 1x. And then the minus 16 I'm going to leave as it is. So in other words, what I've done is I've taken this here, I've taken my minus 63 and I've written it as minus 64x plus x. So this here, these two together, when added or subtracted, or when added actually, are just minus 63x. So I haven't changed this trinomial, I've just taken this bit here and split it up into two numbers here. So what you do next is you use the group of four method of factorizing algebraic expressions, and again I've done that procedure in a previous video. So what you do is you take the first two and you find the highest common factor. So in this particular case it is 4, and also there's an x here as well, 4x. So put in your bracket here, so 4x times what will give me 4x squared, 4x times x will give me 4x squared. I have a plus here, so I need to multiply by a minus to give me a minus, and 4x divided into minus 64x, so that's going to be 16. So in other words, 4x times x will give me 4x squared, 4x times minus 16 will give me minus 64x. Now I've got to take these two here and I've got to do the same thing again. So the common factor between plus x and minus 16, really that's just going to be plus 1. There isn't an x in common, and the highest common factor, there's a 1 here if you like. Highest common factor between 1 and minus 16 is just 1. So what do I get? Well, plus 1 times x will give me a plus 1x, plus times minus will give me this minus, and 1 times 16 will give me this 16 here. Remember as well that, as I have done in the previous video, you must end up with the same expression in each bracket. In this case, x minus 16 and x minus 16. So what you do next is you write down the x minus 16 and you multiply that by these two here, this one and this one here. You're effectively factorizing this term and this term here. You're taking x minus 6 out of both terms. So you end up in here with, let's change that, so that's 4x plus 1. So let's just check that. X times 4x will give me 4x squared. Here I'm going up here, actually 4x squared. Minus 16 times plus 1 will give me minus 16. Let's do these two here to find the one in the middle. So we end up with minus 16 times plus 4, minus 64x. X times plus 1, plus 1x. Add these two together, you get minus 63x. We do have a minus 63x in the middle, so that is fine. Okay, so that's just another few ways of factorizing trinomials. But as I said in the previous video, the best way to do these is really just to do them by eye. Factorize this, and then working out which combinations of factors will give you the one in the middle. If you practice enough of them, you should be able to do them reasonably quickly.